I was really excited researching this.
Yeah?
Because the White Mountains have so many haunted hikes and people's experiences on them, like their actual stories. Which I like when there's actual stories for, like, ghost stuff, because I feel like I can't tell you any of mine. You look at me like I'm a crazy person.
No, I don't.
Or you just don't believe me.
Anyway.
It'd be better if you made excuses, like when I have a ghost story, like, oh no, it was probably this, but no, you just flat out refuse.
I'm not going to make excuses, because if I make excuses, it does seem like I don't believe you. And when you tell me, I'm kind of just like, I don't know, maybe.
Maybe.
You know?
But do you believe that I believe?
Yeah, I do. You can have your own beliefs, that's fine, I don't care.
No, I have to be exactly like you. But anyways.
Okay, fine.
I was really excited because, like I said, the White Mountains, they have...
We're doing the legend of Mount Chocorua as well. That's what we're focusing on.
I was getting into that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We don't have to start with just... We don't have to just be like, I'm in Mount Chocorua!
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I was going for a natural approach. This is great. We're going to have an argument for the first 5 minutes.
That's fine. It's going to happen.
Alright, so researching the White Mountains, many haunted stories. There's, like, a ton. Mm-hmm. And it's cool because it's, like, people's own accounts. Like, there's just... I went down the wormhole of, like, haunted stories at different trailheads and different hikes and this and that. But, of course, I'll wait for all those cool stories for another time, because we are focusing on the legend of Chocora's curse.
Yes.
Anyways, so Chief Chocorua was friendly with the settlers for a time, and he left his son in the care of the Campbell family. This is very brief. I know you're going to go into this more. And while he was away, his son died under the Campbell family's care. He had his revenge, and before he died, he's said to have cursed the white settlers, and then even today, his spirit is said to haunt Mount Chocorua. I'm going to stumble over that every time. So, what I have today is I just have, like, people's actual stories. That's the basis of why it's considered haunted and stuff. And between the two I found, they have a similarity, but I'm just going to go ahead and read them. So this first one says, I love Mount Chocorua and have climbed it over 25 times. I have honestly lost count. Only once I climbed it alone. I got to the top and there was one couple and one elderly male solo hiker at the summit. Shortly after I arrived, the others left the top and I had it to myself. I remember it was Tuesday, and after everyone had been gone for a while, and I was still alone, a moaning sound began emanating from the air around me. It is hard to describe, a keening, almost musical sound. I told myself it was just the wind blowing through the rocks, but it undulated, like maybe a Native American chant. I don't know what that word means. Again, I'm quoting this. I began to speak out loud and used the name Chocorua as if I was addressing his spirit, and I was immediately filled with a sense of reverence. It moved me to tears, and I didn't want it to stop. Alas, the voices of the other hikers intruded, the sound stopped, and I have never had anything like that happen again. It was beautiful.
That's cool.
So, their account was, not bad spirit vibes, but good spirit vibes. That's what I like to call them. Bad vibes or good vibes.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
If it's bad vibes, I'm generally leaning towards demon, and I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah. The Mount Chocorua hike is beautiful, so it's like, I could see how, any kind of vibes up there would be good. It's an awesome hike.
And then there's another one, and it goes, my most recent experience was just below the summit of Chocorua. And it was one of the most powerful and overwhelming experiences to date. I can't explain it except that I was climbing up the cone on the Piper Trail, and I stopped dead in my tracks and absolutely broke down. It was early, just after sunrise, and no one was around. and I wasn't tired or feeling anything prior to it. I couldn't move. I felt like I had been boxed in from going up or down or sideways, and I had to lay down on the rocks and close my eyes for a few minutes. When I came back around, I had the strangest sense of calm and quiet, and this squirrel and little bird were just sitting with me. And I just got up and kept going like it never happened. So both of those stories like have this peaceful. It makes me hard to believe that he actually like, because there's also rumor he cursed the lands, but it sounds like it was more isolated to the settlers there.
Yeah.
Because both of those are very peaceful, and a lot of theories behind spirits is energy is what attracts them or holds them there, whether it be positive energy or negative energy.
Yeah.
And you have to think when you're on a beautiful hike, you generally have positive energy or no energy because inclines suck.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. But I did keep the history very vague because there is interesting history behind it, and I'm excited to hear more of it.
Yeah, so some of the stuff that I researched, I went on the Lake Chocorua Conservatory website. So those are the people that actually maintain that public space at Lake Chocorua. And on that website, they have like some history, and then they also have a couple versions of the legend as well. And it sounds like from your description, you probably got one of the versions from that website as well.
Yeah.
But just a quick recap of it. So, yes, Chief Chocorua was going away on like tribe business, and he left his son in the care of the Campbell family.
And what tribe was it again? Because I couldn't pronounce it.
The Peguakecs. And that's actually what I did most of my history research on, is them specifically, because they have a very fascinating like history. So Chief Chocorua left his son in the care of the Campbell family while he was off on business, and apparently his son, while he was in their care, got into some like poison, and he died. Chief Chocorua thought that the Campbell family like intentionally poisoned him. And in revenge, he killed Campbell's whole family. His wife and kids, just slaughtered him. So then the story goes, there's two versions of it. From there, Chief Chocorua then went to the top of Mount Chocorua, and he cursed the land and then committed suicide. Another version is that Campbell pursued Chocorua up the mountain, like chased him up there and shot him on top of the mountain.
And that's the version I read, because it said that he slaughtered the wife and kids for him to find.
Yeah.
And then he chased him down, and before he fell after getting shot, he cursed the lands.
Yep. Now, there's no record. Now, this is all urban legend. There's no record of a Chief Chocorua ever existing. And he was, in both legends, it states that he was part of the Peguakek tribe. And the Peguakecs, they controlled a massive territory in most of modern-day Maine and then eastern and northern New Hampshire. And their main village was in modern-day Fryeburg, Maine. And at the time, most of the colonists, they lived down in Massachusetts. And so I started doing some research into like the Peguakecs. They knew who the chiefs of that tribe were, and Chief Chocorua was never one of them. So he seems to be a complete fictional person. Which is interesting since it's called Chocorua. Yeah, and which actually makes me wonder where the name actually came from, because I think it does come from this legend, but it doesn't. They don't really have much history backing up the truth of it. So then I started like speculating, being like, okay, I wonder where this comes from. So I started looking into the history of the Peguakecs and like their relationship with the colonists. And there was a man named John Lovewell, and he lived in Nashua, New Hampshire. And apparently, or allegedly, there was an ambush of some men from Nashua, from the Peguakecs, right outside of Nashua, where, they killed like 11 men or something. So John Lovewell got 40, 50 guys together and was going to go do a raid on the Peguakecs to like avenge these guys that got killed. So Lovewell went up into New Hampshire, marched all these men up there. They hit like some small settlements. And then finally they set up a fort in Ossipee. And from there they were going to launch their assault on the main village. So they launched that assault. and they got wrecked. Lovewell got killed. Most of his men got killed, and only a few colonists survived. And they lost and had to retreat back south. But then from there, the Peguequecs, they knew that the colonists were going to come back. They were going to regroup and come back. The Peguequecs just packed up and left and went to Canada. They abandoned all their territory and just left. Mainly because I don't think they didn't want to fight a war with the colonists. Mm-hmm. So this happened in 1725, and I read from the legend. The legend takes place in that time period as well, like early 1700s. So I kind of started like speculating, like, where would this story have come from if it is completely fictional? And if I'm putting myself in like the mindset of the colonists, they were warring with the Peguequecs. They clearly didn't like the Peguequecs. Then they lost a battle and had to come back and regroup. Now, when they lost that battle, those colonists had to have, like, in their mind, they didn't know that the Peguequecs were going to pack up and leave. They were coming back thinking they were going to have to go back and fight again. So I don't think it's a speculation, but I don't think it's crazy to think that story probably came out of those colonists trying to like rally men to go do another battle with the Peguequecs. Because another big thing that I noticed with this legend is it makes Chief Chocorua and the Peguequecs out to be the bad guys. Yeah. And I thought that was pretty significant, that like the story is making the Peguequecs be the bad guys. Yeah. So it probably came from a colonist perspective, not like a Native American perspective. What? So that's really what I speculated, is it was probably like some tall tale spun up trying to like, from the colonists trying to gain support to assault the Peguequecs again.
Or what if the Peguequecs had a handful of people that were like, hell no, we're not moving back to Canada? And someone just titled themselves as a chief, but it didn't go down in history.
Maybe.
I just like speculating.
Yeah, no, that's not what this
Canada sucks.
Like, this whole thing that I just said was a speculation. Yeah. But that's really kind of what I was thinking about. And also, another thing that makes me kind of think that it was these colonists specifically that came up with that is, if you look at the territory that the Peguequecs controlled and the location of Nashua, New Hampshire, Ossipee, Tamworth, and the Lake Chocorua area was the nearest Peguequec-controlled territory to Nashua. So those men in Nashua would have been familiar with that region anyway, because that was the closest Peguequec territory to where they were coming from. Which also leads me to believe that the tale probably came from them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was kind of what I looked up. But yeah, I would have to do more research, because from my understanding, yeah, the name of Lake Chocorua and Mount Chocorua come from that urban legend.
Yeah, I didn't know the chief was non-existent, but when I do my research, I try to just do the vague history that they show, or like the vague story behind why it's haunted. And the moaning description or the chanting, that's actually like the other things that were said is you can hear like his cries after losing his son. Mm-hmm. That's another thing they say you can hear.
Yeah.
But when I research, I like to make sure I'm not going to, because it's interesting, but at the same time, I feel like it's nice to be able to hear you say it like I'm hearing it for the first time.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I am. Yeah. Because I don't go into the super history of it. I go into the superstition side of things.
Yeah, it's real interesting. But yeah, that was the biggest, I mean, I know I'm reiterating this again. The biggest thing I took from the urban legend right away was that all versions of the urban legend made the Campbell family out to be innocent and Chief Chocorua to be violent and in the wrong and evil. So that right away told me that it's a colonist.
Yeah.
It's a colonist urban legend.
Yeah.
But otherwise, beautiful lake. But I actually have a funny story too about how we obtained all the pictures for this. So my buddy Lucas and I, we always go to these places first before we do the recordings, just to check it out and get some perspective for ourselves. So Lucas and I went up early one morning. We were going to do some fishing and kayaking on the lake. And we went, real early before the sun came up. And we get there, and the lake is beautiful. It's all still, looks like glass. Like, there's enough light out to where it's light, but the sun's not quite up yet. and it was freezing. It was so cold. We did not prepare for how cold it was.
Well, yeah, this is just a week ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't, it's fall starting to settle in, and this just happened to be a really cold morning.
And I think the day only got up to like 60 degrees anyways.
Yeah, it wasn't that warm of a day. But the 2 kayaks that we brought, I brought the sit-in kayak that I always use, and then you have
the open top.
The open top sit-on kayak. Now, I kind of feel bad for this because I knew that those open top sit-on kayaks get a little bit of water in them.
Yeah, but it didn't register.
It didn't really register to me. I also didn't take into account that Lucas is a bigger guy, so there's going to be a little more water displacement, which meant there would be a little more water than usual that gets into it. And we're all excited. We get there, we put the kayaks in, we're going to do some fishing. It's beautiful. I'm taking pictures, and immediately, I'm talking the first 5 seconds we're in the water, Lucas is just sitting there in wet jeans, sitting in a puddle with like a wet ass, freezing.
Yeah, not ideal kayak for fall.
Yeah. Now I know that. If I ever do this again, bringing the closed-in open or closed-in sit-in kayaks. But I just felt so bad because, oh man, he was suffering. And I had 2 sweatshirts on. I was dry and I was freezing. He had 1 sweatshirt on and was soaking wet. Yeah. Just shivering. And he was a good sport about it. He was like, yeah, this is fine. We ended up paddling around for like 45 minutes, fished a little bit, but then we had to call it quits because I could tell he was suffering.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was funny. Just him sitting in wet jeans in a puddle, freezing. So, yep. Thank you, Lucas, for your sacrifice for our pictures.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Lucas.
Lucas and his wet ass.
His wet ass.
Yep.
Gross.
But yeah, that's Mount Chocorua.
Nice. And Lake Chocorua.
Yeah. I definitely want to do that hike sometime. I did it about a decade ago, and I remember it not being too bad. But as we learned when we went to Maudsley, my
your memory sucks.
My memory from a decade ago is not as good as I thought it was. So,
and you're so stubborn you wouldn't listen to anyone else.
Yep. So
hard-headed.
Cool.
What do I get myself into?
No idea. All right. Good. Cool.